Good afternoon. I'm Phil Carlson, Managing Director with KCSA, and thank you for joining us for a special conversation hosted by Envoy Medical. Today is about something more than technology or clinical milestones. This is about people. It's about hearing from someone whose life is being changed by a bold new approach to hearing loss. I'm thrilled to be joined by Envoy Medical's Chief Executive Officer, Brent Lucas, and Craig Eggert, the very first person to receive the Acclaim cochlear implant. Before we begin, a quick note. This discussion will include forward-looking statements under the safe harbor provisions of the Private Securities Litigation Reform Act of 1995. These statements involve risks and uncertainties, and actual results could differ. Please refer to our most recent filings with the SEC for more information. Now, back to why we're here. We talk a lot about innovation in healthcare, but rarely do we get the chance to hear directly from the people at the heart of that innovation. Craig's story is a reminder of what all this work is really about. Not just devices, trials, or approvals, but helping people regain something many of us take for granted, the ability to hear life as it happens. Brent will guide today's conversation with Craig and offer insights into the Acclaim implant and what it represents for patients, for the industry, and for the future of hearing health. At the end of today's chat, we'll open the floor for live questions. You can submit yours at any time via the Q&A function. If we don't get to your question, please reach out afterward at envoy@kcsa.com. Please note this call is being recorded today, Thursday, December 11th, 2025. This recording will be available on the company's investor relations website. Before we dive into the chat with Craig, I wanted to give Brent an opportunity to provide a brief overview of Envoy Medical. Brent?
Thanks, Phil. It's good to be here. Thanks for everyone who is joining the conversation on the webcast. Quickly, just give you a highlight of Envoy Medical. Envoy Medical is a hearing implant company. We have a fully implanted active middle ear device that we call the Esteem, which received FDA approval in 2010. And then we are now very excited about and here to talk about today our investigational Acclaim device, which is a fully implanted cochlear implant. Envoy Medical is based in White Bear Lake, Minnesota. We manufacture all of our devices here in Minnesota in the US. We are listed on the NASDAQ, American Exchange, under the ticker symbol COCH, and encourage folks to follow along our progress, as I'm expecting a very exciting couple of years here as we hit our milestones and continue on. A couple of high points of differentiation between us and some of the other technologies for the cochlear implant space that we're gonna address today, but want to highlight ahead of time. Envoy's device is fully implanted, so we have no required external device. We also use the ear to pick up sound. So by that, I mean we have a piezoelectric sensor that sits on our incus bone that allows the patient to pick up sound vibrations through the ear. So we do not have a microphone behind or on the ear, and we do not have a subdermal or subcutaneous microphone implanted behind the ear. We use the ear to pick up sound, which is, I believe, a benefit, and we will hopefully be able to demonstrate over time that patients prefer the flexibility of using their ear to pick up sound and not require a subdermal or an external microphone. And the other thing that a lot of patients are interested in learning about, and one of the reasons I believe this technology is the right architecture for a fully implanted cochlear implant, is we have a battery pack in the chest. And the battery pack in the chest has a large capacity, a larger capacity than the other implants that I'm aware of a similar type. This will allow the patient to hopefully recharge between 4 and 5 days and have a battery that can be replaced about every 12 to 15 years. It's a very important point to make that our battery will be able to be replaced when that capacity diminishes without the device having to be fully explanted. We are, as I said, in a pivotal clinical study for the Acclaim. This is an investigational device, so you need to be aware that this is not commercially available and something that we need to, go through the regulatory approval process. And if you have more questions on that, please visit our website for more information. So with that, all that good stuff out of the way, Craig, how you doing? It's good to see you.
Good. Good afternoon. Nice to see you.
Yeah, everybody came to talk to you, so I'm just going to get myself out of the way here. So let's just start off the conversation by asking you, Explain your hearing loss journey. So just walk us through how long you knew you had hearing loss, how long you used hearing aids, and then we'll go into the implant story after that.
Okay. Well, starting out, I come from a family with some hereditary hearing loss on my mother's side. So it was really no surprise that I was kind of identified, probably through grade school with school hearing tests that I had some mild hearing loss already at that time. Um, so going through school and everything didn't seem like it was a problem. Get into my 20s and worked around a lot of loud equipment. Of course, in your 20s, you think you're invincible at everything and didn't have the proper, hearing protection at that time, different things. So I probably had a little bit of, on top of the hereditary loss, probably some self-inflicted damage that I did during that time. So already then, you know, I say 30 years old, got my first set of hearing aids right around that time, early 30s, probably shortly after my oldest daughter was born. So I've had hearing aids for upwards of 25 plus years around that time, been through, several different types of hearing aids. I would say probably each time jumping into something a little bit stronger because you know, each year that goes by, my hearing kept getting worse and worse. And, once I got into my 50s, you know, got to the point where it was getting so bad that really avoided a lot of places where, you know, high noise volume restaurants, Christmas parties, graduation receptions, different things like that, that I couldn't go into those places and have a conversation, even, across the table with my wife or somebody standing next to me. Was just so difficult and really embarrassing, to not be able to have a conversation. I was, you know, so really, to avoid that, I really, my world got a lot smaller. And how do you want to say, just avoided those situations, not put myself into them. Um, around that time, I thought, how much worse can it get, right? Well, then COVID came along, and everybody's wearing face masks and face shields and everything else, and trying to hear people through that, and really through the 30 years of even wearing hearing aids, I found that I could start to read lips, so it really helped to have somebody face me. So, with the mask on, it was impossible. I really went through a tough time there. Not just my personal life with work, different meetings that went all to webinars, and it was really tough. And um, so, getting to that point there, it was like, what do I do? Um, made a appointment with my local audiologist, thinking maybe something was wrong with my hearing aids, needed an adjustment, only to find out that, no, it wasn't. It wasn't the hearing aids. My hearing is getting worse even yet. Wasn't really a lot she felt like she could do for me. Um, she was the one that actually initially gave me information to say, you know what, maybe you need to look into a cochlear implant. She did at that time, luckily, had received some information from Mayo Clinic that there was a study going on with a possible, you know, implanted hearing device. Um, so when I won't say I made the appointment because I couldn't hear anybody on the phone and stuff even too. So my wife made the appointment in Mayo Clinic, and luckily then she, did mention that about that, the study trial that was going on, and that we'd be interested in maybe looking into that. So, from there, appointment with Mayo Clinic, meeting with Dr. Sauji, great individual. Can't say enough about him. Um, and one of the first things he did then was, which I'll back up a little bit, knowing that what the cochlear implant was, I've never heard of it before. And, I heard the word implant, so I think that, well, it's might be something implanted in me. Um, in this day and age, you do a Google search and can pull it up, and I'm pulling it up, looking at it, going, I don't know if I want this, you know. And my wife's like, well, let's just follow through on the appointment, see what they say, see if you're even a candidate for it. And went up for the appointment. Dr. Sauji brought all this hardware out, to show me so I could at least physically put my hands on it and show me, this is what it is. This is what a cochlear implant's all about. And, from there we went to, this is what we're going to do. This is what we're looking at. Want to know if you're interested. Watched a few videos on that to see if I was interested or not. And to me, it was a no-brainer. I mean, to what the cochlear implant was compared to the possibility of a 100% internal implant. Um, Basically an invisible device. It was a no-brainer for me to choose that route.
What about, one of the things that we've learned over time is, and this is well documented in a lot of publications, there's a very low penetration rate for people who could qualify for a cochlear implant but get one. It's actually somewhere between, let's say, 5% is a kind of average number of some of the others. Why do you think it's so low? Why do you think people don't get cochlear implant, the traditional ones? We're talking about the ones with the stuff on the
Um,
side of the head.
and I kind of made an appointment today to wear a hat to this because 95% of my waking hours, that's the first thing that probably goes out of my head when I leave the house. I work outside, inside, both, but I have a hat on for sun protection for skin cancer. This time of year, I've got a stocking cap on, hood over. It just all that hardware externalize. I don't know if it fits into everybody's lifestyle. It didn't fit into mine.
Yeah, no, I've told you this before, but the first time I walked into the appointment, I was lucky enough to come to an appointment of yours, one of the early ones, and I walked into the room, and you really don't know who's the cochlear implant patient because they don't have
You
the
don't.
thing on the side of the head, and you're wearing a hat, and I thought to myself, I think we're onto something. I think this is going to work.
Well, I can back up even to my first set of hearing aids. I mean, it was, at 30 years old, getting hearing aids, I was kind of you know, I started out not wanting to wear them all the time. I would only wear them, maybe when I thought I needed them, and then I take them out. And so that, to go to the cochlear implant is it's a crazy jump up.
Yeah, yeah. So you said it was a no-brainer, but how? I think people are always curious. You knew you were the first patient ever to get implanted. Why would you be willing to take that risk?
I was at a point with my hearing, I was willing to try anything, to be honest with you. I mean, I was terrible. Um, it was a risk I was willing to take. I don't know what to say about that, but I guess to make that choice, it was either not do a cochlear implant, do nothing, um, or take that jump. I felt like Mayo Clinic was involved too, with it. I didn't feel like it got to this point that everybody didn't feel like it was going to be successful. I think I went into it. I've had people ask me whether I was nervous going into the surgery. Well, yeah, I was nervous. I mean, why would you not be? But I was probably more nervous of coming out of the surgery, um, not worried about if it was going to work later on, but more so that I was concerned that they would get inside and I wasn't going to be a candidate for it.
Yeah,
That was my biggest concern. I wanted to get through the surgery, get it implanted. Once I got past that, I thought I was home free. So.
yeah. No, that's great. Um, so the components. Let's talk a little bit about the components. So the components. You have a battery pack in the chest, which is different from all of the cochlear implants. Even the two of our competitors are working on a totally implanted version, but ours is the only one with the battery pack in the chest. Tell me a little bit about, do you feel it? Do you notice it? What's recharging like? Tell us about the battery.
Um, as far as recharging, I usually don't mess around with it till it gets below 30%, but it's so convenient to do it that even like today I was around 50%, but I knew I was going to be at the desk for a while working, so I went ahead and hooked it up, charged for an hour, whatever, run it up to close to 100%. And so it's really convenient as far as the charging side of it. Um, at this point, I'm 3 years into it. So as far as the battery itself, I really don't pay attention to it anymore. It's not really, it's part of my body. I don't notice it's there. You know, moving anything. It's not like it impedes anything. It hasn't stopped me from doing anything, in my normal day-to-day life. Um, it just it's really I guess basically not noticeable at all for me.
And then do you like the idea that you'll be able to replace it when the capacity goes down? So you're a like middle-aged man, we'll call you a middle-aged man.
I'll be 58 in March.
All right, great. So you're going to live 30, 40 more years, hopefully, maybe longer. So you're going to need to change that battery capacity. So just for the audience's benefit, rechargeable batteries lose their capacity over time. And all of us know this because all
Yeah.
of us have cell phones. And over time, if you do about 1,000 charge cycles, they start to diminish their capacity. And so we designed the device so that you'll be able to replace the battery in the chest, when it starts to lose capacity. Is that a good thing for you to know that you can replace that battery?
Oh, that's awesome. I mean, especially, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think, one of my post-surgery checkups, I believe that I was told that, that battery is placed in your chest. It pretty much um, heals into like a little pouch that's right there.
Yep.
And I think all they need to do to remove it is to just open up the top, pop it back out of that pouch, reconnect a new battery, put it back in. And I believe I was even told then that it's something that could basically be done in other than, anesthesia, but the 15, 20 minutes is all it takes for them to do it. So especially at that age, if I'm 70 years old, if I can avoid being put under, for a surgery, I would prefer that. So yeah, to me, it's a great option.
Yeah. No, I'll have to defer to the doctors on that one, and you're in good hands with Dr. Driscoll. So I'll let him tell you what can and can't be done. And so one more question on the battery, because I know you're a hunter. You're an outdoorsman. You like to hunt. Um, do you worry about that when you're hunting? Have you had a problem with it when you're hunting?
No, I've shot a gun on that shoulder, so it's far enough away from there. Any wiring is far enough away from my shoulder. Doesn't seem like that's caused any problem or would cause any problem. I know it didn't sound like the doctors had any concern about it. Um, so no, I mean, really hasn't affected me at all. I do a ton of walking, hiking, everything, along with the hunting and stuff. Really no effect at all.
That's great. Um, so like you said, you've been 3 years since you've been turned on or activated. I think the implant was a little 3 year anniversary was a little bit ago. Now you're at that three year anniversary for the activation. How's it been? Like, how specifically? What's your personal experience been like? Has your day-to-day life changed? Just to people that are interested, let us know what it's been like.
Yeah, I would say probably not even the first year after activation. It's a whole new world of sounds that I've never heard before. I mean, I don't want to say I turned back into an infant again, but it was sounds that I haven't heard in 20 years. And
Yeah,
so it was a whole kind of a learning process, which we're making some adjustments to during that process. But it took a while for my brain to kind of get the swing of things again on what some of these noises were and putting them in place. But so saying that it's been an unbelievable process from there. Yeah, between friends and family, employees that I work with, everybody can notice the difference in me with not making them repeat a sentence two or three or four times before I understand what it is. Um, you know, I guess communication back and forth to, you know, an individual is one thing, but you talk about the change in quality of life. Um, Really, it's a lot of simple things that go into that. I guess I can laugh about some things now, but I mean, I was notorious at home for walking in the kitchen, turning the sink on to rinse something off, shutting it off, turning around and walking away, and not hearing the water drip.
yeah,
And now I can, simple things like that. And my wife and I spend a lot of time outside this summer on the porch listening to birds that I have not heard in years. And she likes to quiz me every now and then and go, "Do you hear that?" And now I can say, yeah, I can hear it. And, it's been an amazing process. It's so hard to explain, from not being able to hear to being able to hear with the flip of a switch. Um, it's been really incredible for both me and my family.
That's great. A little bit up more on the family side. So how is that you've been able to stay more engaged? I know you have a wife and two daughters. A
Correct.
little bit on the personal side, staying engaged, and then also let us know a little bit about the experience at work, with the Zoom meetings and the calls, that sort of thing.
Yeah, like I said, getting hearing aids back in my 30s. Both my daughters basically were born and raised with a dad that couldn't hear. So that's something that they've always been around. I mean, it's basically dad can't hear. And, my wife and I just celebrated 30th anniversary this May. So same thing with her. I mean, she's been with me basically our whole time together has been with a hearing loss. So to have this change and be able to communicate with my family so much better, it's been great. Um, how you asked about work with Zoom calls and stuff. It's just like with this. I wouldn't be on this today, Brent, if for me to be able to hear you just would be impossible. And during that time with the meetings and stuff, I got to where I would even make excuses where I couldn't make those calls and make them send me email afterwards, maybe with updates on the meeting, and I would respond back from there. But it was just too embarrassing for me to be on there and have questions asked of me and not be able to hear them. Now, it's how do I want to say? It's the point where I've got confidence now that I'm back to living my life the way I want to live it, rather than trying to make excuses for it.
That's very well said. Um, Phil, I don't want to make you feel left out.
No, that's
Anything?
all right. Well, I had a couple questions for you, Brent. So, Craig was in the early feasibility study at the Mayo Clinic, and you have since started the pivotal clinical trial. What learnings from the first study have been incorporated into the pivotal clinical trial?
Yeah, and that's an important point. I want to, for the, I got a little bit of a lawyer inside of me. So I'll say, we're still in trials. Craig was part of the early feasibility study. We're in the middle of a pivotal clinical study now. So, no claims are safe, whether the device is safe or effective. We have to go through the full blown process of the trial for that. So it's important for investors to realize we're still in the trial. We're approaching commercialization. I would say there's been a couple of key changes. We made a change to the sensor. We modified part of the sensor to allow for it to perform with less noise, which was a great addition to what we've been up to. We already had a great sensor, but we made it slightly better with actually quite a simple modification that allowed us to pick up less electrical stimulation. And then there were two, I'll call them program or hardware changes within the chips. That's what I'll sort of say high level. That also allowed us to clean up the signal slightly. So we've been able to improve the signal to noise ratio, as we like to call it in the industry, where the good signal gets away from the noise. We've been able to improve that for the pivotal trial, and I'm very excited to see kind of where the data ends up with that as we go through.
So Brent, like, what would you say are the key upcoming clinical or regulatory milestones we can expect to see over the next 12 to 18 months?
Over the next 12 to 18 months, so we're in the final stage of the pivotal clinical study. So in early October, we got the very good news from the FDA that we could move from the first stage of our pivotal study to the second stage. Very excited about that. We are currently enrolling at 7 investigational sites, and we are approaching the sort of that halfway point of the study, hopefully getting there by the end of December. So investors can expect us to talk about various enrollment milestones as we go through the trial, And then following folks like Craig, and so we'll follow the early feasibility study patients. We'll continue to put out information about their progress, as well as the progress of the first stage of the pivotal study, which was the first 10 patients, as we're able to. We have a couple of presentation, or at least one presentation, at American Cochlear Implant Alliance this year. I know one of our investigators is going to present an abstract and talk about it there. Hopefully we'll be at a couple of other meetings as well, starting to talk about the progress of the company. So there's a lot of different milestones that'll be coming up. And I think we're making great progress. And then eventually, sort of to jump to the chase, or jump to the end, well, the end or the beginning, I guess, depends on how you look at it. The FDA so we will submit our PMA to the FDA, and hopefully in Q2 of 27, and then hopefully get through the approval process by the end of 2027, looking for commercialization in 2028 if all goes well with that submission.
So how is the company preparing for that next phase of development and potential commercialization?
It's a great question. And one of the things that's very important to me, for the employees and my board and investors that I've spoken with, one of the things that's very important to me is that we prepare ourselves to commercialize this product responsibly. And by that, I mean, I want to make sure we optimize the opportunity to the best of our ability. So we are preparing quality manufacturing, all of that work that needs to be done to ensure that we're able to build the capacity and meet the demand that I believe will be there. I believe we'll have significant demand right out of the gate, and Envoy Medical needs to be prepared to meet that demand. So we are taking steps to identify, so we have our 7 investigational sites, but I would like to be at least 35 sites throughout the US by beginning of 28. So we're identifying centers that are interested in working with us. We've already got the bulk of that sort of identified and starting to work through that. And then we're also looking at improving our quality system and preparing our manufacturing to scale up. So we're taking that progress very seriously. I would also say we have a great team of engineers, and we're putting the plans in place for the future as well. So we're not just resting on our laurels of today. We're also thinking 5-10 years down the line and where we can take this product.
So can you talk about the early feedback that you've seen from clinicians evaluating the Acclaim approach here?
Yes. Well, I have to be a little careful around what I can and can't say here, since it's not FDA approved. But let me just say, the excitement of this product, the excitement of the industry around this product is tangible. I'm getting a lot of people, a lot of audiologists, a lot of surgeons contacting us, asking to be part of the trial or asking to be part of the commercial rollout. I have a good friend in the industry who I've known for many years. His joke was to me, when he was on our advisory board several years ago, and his joke was, when I started in the 1980s, he's a wise older gentleman, let's put him that way. So when I started in this industry in the 1980s, the joke was, well, we're going to have a fully implanted cochlear implant at the turn of the millennia. And the joke over time in the early 2000s and 2010 became, well, which millennia are we going to have a fully implanted cochlear implant? So to be able to be the company that is really pushing the industry forward and taking it forward to the fully implanted device, pretty darn excited about it. And there are a lot of people that are interested in it. And I think we have the best architecture. I'm obviously biased. I'm the CEO of the company, so I'm obviously biased. But I think we have the best architecture for a fully implanted cochlear implant. And I look forward to testing that theory on the market.
So, okay. So the last question I have for you, Brent, would be, what should investors understand about the technology advantage here?
Well, fully implanted cochlear implant is an obvious opportunity. So you have external device that sits on the head with traditional cochlear implants. And, by the way, traditional cochlear implants have helped hundreds of thousands of people already. They're wonderful technologies. They've helped people retrieve their sense of sound. So I'm not saying anything bad about traditional cochlear implants, but what I am saying is, I think we all know, as Craig just explained, if you can have a fully implanted one that's not external, patients might want to choose that. So you obviously have the invisibility, the discretion of not having to show the world that you have hearing loss by being fully implanted. But there's also, you can wear it 24 hours a day. It's designed to be waterproof, obviously, because it's within your body. It's designed to be on all day if you want it, or you can also turn it off. We believe it's just more conducive to the patient's lifestyle, and I'm hopeful that that'll be able to bear itself out.
Okay.
Well, great. Craig, I know we're at about a half an hour. Let me ask you, if I can ask you a couple more questions. Let me ask you,
Sure.
would you do it again? Would you get it?
Absolutely. I want you to do my other ear. I want to be the person with 2 ear implants.
Yeah. Yeah, we got to wait till we're FDA approved. That's not part of the protocol yet.
Absolutely, I would.
If you could think of sort of an investor, so not, a traditional investor that's out there, somebody that's thinking about putting cash behind the company, any reason why you think they should take a chance on a company like Envoy Medical? Is there any message to those investors?
Well, I think we ran through a lot of things as far as with my success on it. You touched on it earlier with, close to 95% of the people that could qualify for a cochlear implant decided not to. And I think you just said earlier too, who would not want the opportunity for an all invisible implant that works? I feel like I'm proof that it works. I can't say enough about it. So for somebody that probably coming in as an investor, why would you not want to be part of a company that is the possibility of making somebody's life better like they did mine, and really a product that's going to change across the world, not just Minnesota, not just the United States, but this is something that's worldwide, right?
You're right. Yeah, no, it doesn't. Hearing loss is not something that discriminates. It is something that is for everyone. And just to give people an idea, it's probably in the United States, probably around 3 million people that could get a cochlear implant. But the penetration rate, like I said earlier, is only about 5%. So about 95% of the market is just not being adequately addressed. And so hopefully we have a technology that will get this into more people, which allows them to, regain their sense of hearing, regain their life, as you said that you have been able to.
I was in that 95%, Brent. I was in that to where I was not going to choose that route, but with the Acclaim put in front of me, it was, basically a no-brainer for me to make a choice in that direction. So
that's great. That's great. Anything else, Phil, before we wrap up?
You know what? Since we're running up against time here, why don't we flip it over to Q&A? So, I want to thank you, Brent and Craig, and thank you guys for your time today. We're going to open up the call now to our audience and move to the Q&A portion of the chat. So if you have a question for management, please type it into the Q&A function at the bottom of your screen. As I'm going through here, given Acclaim's differentiated technology, why do you think the market has not yet fully reflected the company's long-term potential?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think Envoy is under the radar for a couple of reasons. One, if you look at the public companies in the hearing space, they're all foreign owned and operated. So the public companies in the hearing space are in Europe or Australia. There's Envoy Medical is really the only publicly traded hearing implant company in the United States. And so there's just not a real awareness around it. Now, you would think more people would want to invest in hearing because it's the second or third most common disability that people face. It's also, if you don't address your hearing loss, there's now a tie between undressed hearing loss and cognitive decline or getting dementia. It's the second, according to a lot of publications, it's the second most modifiable risk factor, right? So if you want to push off dementia or cognitive decline, address your hearing loss would be a very good way of going about it. So I think that it's just sort of under the radar. I also think that the markets are not efficient for companies of our size, meaning perfect information is not out there, and we're flying under the radar. And I look forward to continuing to hit our milestones and continuing to move forward and bringing more investors along the journey with us. And as we do that, I believe the value will be reflected over time.
All right. For Craig, are there any hearing support groups that you have been a part of? And for Brent, do you think the awareness of the Envoy device is growing?
Craig, you want to go
I have
first?
not been in part of any support groups at all. I mean, the short answer, I guess, but
And then what was the question for me, Phil? I'm sorry, I
Do you
blanked
think the
again.
awareness of the Envoy device, the Acclaim device, is growing?
I think it's growing. I've heard from several audiologists and surgeons lately that they've been at conferences or patients have sort of come out of the woodwork. I was actually at my kid's soccer game recently, and one of the mothers on the team, who I didn't even know was an audiologist, said, "Aren't you that guy that's got the fully implanted cochlear implant company?" So I think it's starting to get out there into the marketplace, and I believe that it's one of those stories. Everybody knows somebody with hearing loss. Everybody knows somebody with hearing loss. And almost every family is impacted by hearing loss on some degree, on some level. So as this story comes out more and people hear that you can have a fully implanted solution, I absolutely believe more people are going to be interested in the company.
For Craig, how long did it take for you to adjust to all of the new sounds and word recognition? And how did that become natural?
just like hearing aids are the same way. It's new sound for you, so there's always some time period there for the transition. I would say within a couple months. One thing that we did do through that first year is there was constant adjustments that we made. Being the first implant patient, um, it wasn't just turn it on and go. I mean, it was a constant. I'm sure they wish they could have me sitting in their shop right next to them where they could say, what's this sound like? But so we could only get together so often. But we make some adjustments. I go home with them, and there were some times that I turn around and I was back up there within a week, and we need to make some adjustments again. It was So they were very flexible with everything, but it took a few months, to really get settled in.
Okay, so how was the recovery from post-surgery and how long before you were back to normal physically?
I mean, I was back to work within a matter of 48 hours. It's obviously it's surgery. They put a part in the back of my head that healed up really quickly. Probably the battery took the longest just because they put that in your chest. There's skin's got to pretty much be peeled away from muscle for that battery to be placed. Um, Basically treated that with, over-the-counter ibuprofen, ice. But within about a week's time, I was feeling pretty good after that. Again, I was working immediately after that. So very short amount of time.
Okay. Brent, what factors could accelerate or delay the regulatory pathway, and how are you planning around that uncertainty?
At this point, the trial's underway, and the expansion has happened. So there's a lot of certainty around the clinical trial pathway. So, as investors know, when you look at a medical device startup company and a company with a breakthrough technology like this, by the way, we got FDA breakthrough device designation, and very excited about that. First you have sort of a technology risk, right? You got to burn that risk out of the investment. We've done that. We built the technology. We have intellectual property around the technology. We proved it, validated on the bench, and now we have it in human beings and are doing testing with human beings. So the technology risk is pretty well burned out. Then you have your clinical risk. Your clinical risk tied to, okay, are you gonna be able to get a study going? Are you going to be able to come to agreement with the FDA on what the study endpoints need to be? And then can you run that study? And we're pretty well through that process. I'm not going to say it's all burned out because obviously we're in the middle of the trial, but we know what we're doing and we're moving along in a good direction. And I feel comfortable with where we're at and look forward to the trial being completed because I'm very bullish on where we'll be once it's completed. And then you get into the regulatory and the reimbursement side of things and the commercialization. So we've really burned out a lot of the risk along the way. At this point, I don't see any big, blinking lights in terms of, this is a big unknown. We know what we have to do, and now we just need to execute. We just need to execute. I like to talk to the team about 20-mile march. We get up, we do what we're supposed to do, we execute, we don't take a day off, and we keep moving forward. If we keep doing that, we will be where we need to be. Obviously, there's macroeconomic and political things, and if COVID happens again or something, that can come in the way. But all we can control is what we can control, and that's what we're doing. We're just moving along at a very methodical pace, controlling the variables that we can control, and I feel very comfortable that we have a good chance of getting to where we want to be if we do that appropriately.
So, Brent, do tariffs affect your manufacturing process?
To date, no. We are American owned and operated. We manufacture everything in the US. So if that storyline continues, Envoy could actually be in a beneficial position in that we do all of the manufacturing here in the US. I'm active in talking to certain members of Congress about, this is a company that can create very good American jobs here in the United States. And this is something that, if we're serious about creating manufacturing and bringing manufacturing back to the US, what a great opportunity. Right now, 100% of all the cochlear implants are not made, by companies that are American. I know some of our competitors have an American presence, but their headquarters are overseas. We're headquartered here in Minnesota, very proud of that, and look forward to building the manufacturing here. So right now, we're not impacted by that tariff situation. I don't anticipate it happening, but we'll always keep an eye on it just to be responsible.
So another question just came in here. Will the Acclaim be able to replace an existing cochlear brand implant one day?
I think the question may be related to, can you have an original version explanted and an Acclaim implanted in that same ear? I'm going to say this in a way that is what the CEO of the company should say, which is you should talk to your surgeon about that. The trial is not studying that particular thing. That is something that will be up to the provider. That'll be something that's up to the surgeon. But it's well known that there are some people that get their device explanted and get a different device. And I see no reason why that can't happen here. But that is going to be a discussion between your provider, and your audiologist, your surgeon.
Okay, I guess so. We have just a few more minutes here, Brandon. Are there any other questions you'd like to ask Craig before we close this out?
Brent, I have a question for you.
Oh, there we go.
Okay. Yeah.
So if I was somebody new that was interested in getting a Acclaim implant, how does that compare insurance coverage wise with, say, a cochlear implant?
So we'll need to get FDA approval first. So that's the first step of that. We'll need to get FDA approval. But our belief is that it will be the same process. So the provider would use the same reimbursement codes that they would use for traditional cochlear implants. They would use the codes for a fully implanted cochlear implant. So there's already coding, coverage, and payment that exists for cochlear implants. The Acclaim is obviously a cochlear implant. So this would be something that would be able to be reimbursed through the same processes and procedures. My belief and understanding is that it would be about the same copay, right? So you need to qualify through candidacy. Your insurance provider would need to approve the process, approve it happening, and then you get the procedure, and it should be the same as it would be for a traditional cochlear implant. So there is no difference to the patient. That should be what happens.
Okay. All right. So I guess Brent, Craig, any other questions between you two, or if not, we can close it out. But again, I want to thank you both for your time here today. This concludes today's Fireside Chat. Thank you to all the investors for tuning in. For more information on Envoy Medical and the Acclaim cochlear implant, please visit www.envoymedical.com. And please contact Envoy at kcsa.com if you have further questions we were not able to address today. Brent and Craig, thank you again and enjoy the holiday season. We look forward to following Acclaim and Envoy Medical.
Absolutely. Yeah. Craig, thank you so much for sharing your story. It's important to share your personal experience. So I appreciate you taking the
Absolutely.
time.
Yep, I appreciate you having me on.